Hello, welcome back for both the people out there that actually might see this video. I mentioned a little bit in my first video, these are mostly for my own recollection and to keep a record for myself, but if I can help anybody else out there, anybody else can get some enjoyment or a help or even just have some fun time trolling me, that's fine too, that's a bonus. Instead of doing more book reviews, I was thinking I really need to do a top 10 list. That turned out to be a lot harder than I thought, and I ended up with a top 11 list because the last two I couldn't decide, so finally I just threw them both on. So this is Ridcully's top 11 fantasy and sci-fi books to read. The number one, after thinking about it, and then I do need to throw out the caveat that once I've rated one book for an author, he's out. She's out. That made it so much easier because some authors would have 4 or 5 books in the top 10, and I wanted to be more expansive than that. So once an author, once one of their books make it onto my top 11 list, I'll try and do some mentions of some of the other books that really are just as good and should make it on there, but they won't because one's already on there. And that really comes into play with number one, which is Discworld, Terry Pratchett. The book I chose for number one is Thud. Thud is in the Guards series. He has several different series in Discworld. The Witches series, the Death series, the Guards series. Thud is one of the later books that he wrote in life. I think it was slightly before he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, so it's one of the last books that he wrote. Terry Pratchett was an author that some authors after that are one hit, 2 hit wonders, and then they just start phoning it in for a paycheck. Terry Pratchett, no, he got better the more he wrote. His books were just amazing, and he has, I don't know, 30, 40 different books that he's written overall. Some of them were bad. He has 1 or 2, but really the 1 or 2 books were bad. Most of them were excellent to outstanding, and I chose Thud and Discworld as definitely the number 1 book of all time. Don't just go in and read Thud alone. Like I said, it's in the Guards series. There are several books in the Guard series before it. It is possible to read it alone. It'll still be a good book on its own, but it'll be an even better book if you read the previous books and have a more established idea of who the different characters are in Thud. Second one, this one's a little bit emotional. It's Lord of the Rings. My first grade teacher when I was 6 years old read us The Hobbit, and she didn't think to tell us that it was a fantasy book. So you can imagine a 6-year-old's life, how profound of an impact The Hobbit will have when he's going home every day thinking that he's learning history of Earth from The Hobbit. Not her fault, of course. Who would have thought that you needed to tell the kids that this was just a story, but because she read us The Hobbit, I thought it was real for a couple of years as a small child. It was huge. I was going to find Middle Earth, get me a sword, become a wizard. It actually changed my life and the way I think and the way I imagine and the things that I enjoy. And then the Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, because of the huge impact in my life, they're definitely at number 2. I need to go back and read them again. I've probably read them 7 times. So Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, they're number 2. Third is a newer book that my knee-jerk reaction was initially put this one as number 1 until I thought about how powerful Discworld and Lord of the Rings have been in my life. And it's called Ready Player One. Ernest Cline, it's a new book that he wrote. It was magical. It took me back to into the late 70s and the 80s, and the bowling alleys and the arcades, and the world that I grew up in. And he had apparently just knew that world. He knew how to explain it. He knew how to, into book form, take you back and put you into that situation again in life, and then expand upon it. You know, I learned things reading Ready Player One that were huge events for that time period that I didn't know about when I was living that time period, and now I'm scrambling as an old person to try and recapture some of those. I'm always looking on eBay for the Captain Crunch Bosun's Whistle, trying to get a few of those. I know once the movie comes out that they're going to be extremely hard to get. Different things like that. Ready Player One, amazing book, intelligent characters, believable as far as the human condition, as far as human nature. Ready Player One, phenomenal book, comes in at number 3. Coban, Stephen W. Bennett, number 4. This is also a new series. Stephen Bennett's only been writing for a few years. They're kind of a lost gem. A lot of people don't even know they exist yet. Science fiction, really goes into the biosciences and genetic manipulation. Alien race, genetically incredibly superior. I mean, they're just toying with the human race as a hunt. Great story. It starts out a little slow. I've tried to get other people to read it, and they put it down, because if books don't catch you within the first page, they won't go on. Usually that's me. I don't know how I ended up getting through the first, chapter or so when it was kind of slow. But quickly, it picks up and jumps into a story and the science and science fiction, and creates a world that I want to live in. I want everything that he creates in the Coban series. Excellent series. Number 5, Ender's Shadow. Extremely famous science fiction. Ender's Game. Ender's Shadow follows Ender's Game. Ender's Shadow, I do think, is a better book, but it is an even better book to read if you've read Ender's Game first. It's Bean. It's one of the side characters in Ender's Game, telling what happened through the same time period through his eyes. And after you read this, you don't want to be Bean. I guess you just don't even like science fiction, because Bean is one of the most phenomenal characters ever created. Ender in Ender's Game, likewise, one of the most phenomenal science fiction characters ever created, and I think Bean eclipses him once you read Ender's Shadow. An amazing book, must read. Number 6, Douglas Adams. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Salmon of Doubt, Starship Titanic. I put Hitchhiker's Guide just arbitrarily. All of his books, even his notes, even his little articles, anything that Douglas Adams wrote is worth listening to. I would suggest, as good as the books are to read, really work at finding the audiobooks that Douglas Adams himself read. He is the most amazing voice to his books. Just excellent availability. One of the things in some of his advice, and I think it was a radio clip, or I don't remember where it came from, but there is an audio clip of someone asking him, what advice would you give to science fiction authors? And his advice was, make sure that the table that you're writing on is sturdy enough that when you're banging your head against it, it doesn't collapse. He gets it. He's funny, he's intelligent, huge scientific mind. It comes through in the books. Once again, everything that Douglas Adams wrote is worth reading. It's worth reading 2 or 3 times. Get the edition that he read in the audio version. It's definitely, if not the best way to enjoy his works, one of the best ways possible. 7. This one I'm cheating. The Aldenata series, A Hymn Before Battle, kind of arbitrary. It's the first book in the Aldenata series by John Ringo. John Ringo is a military science fiction author. Not that popular. He's never won a Hugo, never won a Nebula. I don't know why. Part of me suspects politics, because the quality of his work and the quality of his books are better than other books that have been written in the same time period. So I'm confused on why he's not better known. It could be because he's very conservative and he was military, and it comes through in his writings and his way of thinking. That probably definitely will turn you off people that are of a liberal point of view. I should say definitely, because there's people who understand military science fiction and enjoy it that are liberal, so that was an unfair statement. Ignore that. But do know that he has conservative points of views. They come through in the books, but the military, the science fiction, excellent. And he has several series. He's got the Paladin series, which I don't know why I jumped to it first. It's the one I don't like, the second least favorite. It's kind of porn. The thing that's frustrating to me is the storyline of the series is an excellent storyline, and then it's ruined by the porn. I realize that when you're writing sexually explicit stuff, it makes money, so I can't fault people that do it. It sells. You cater to your audience, but at the same time, I wish that that series would be, just put together without the porn, because it actually distracts from the story when you're trying to read the story. I didn't finish that series, only the first couple. He's got a fantasy one about dragons that I haven't been able to get into, but the zombie series, the zombie apocalypse series, Under a Darkling Sky, excellent zombie apocalypse series. He's got the Prince Roger series, excellent intergalactic science fiction, military science fiction. The Aldenata series, one of his best. I'm really cheating and putting, with my rule here, because he's 20, 30 books of his would definitely I'd be trying to put in the top 10, and I couldn't do it. So give John Ringo, I would suggest start with The Hymn Before Battle, or the Prince Roger, heavens, the Troy series. Start with any of those series. If you like science fiction, military science fiction, you've got to read John Ringo. Number 8, another semi-new author, Craig Allinson, Columbus Day, Expeditionary Force. It starts out, and then it took a turn on me that I was not expecting, and the turn was comic and hilarious. Brought new characters in, became the main point of the series. I didn't realize that that's where the series was going. I thought it was a regular invasion, science fiction type genre, and then there's a plot twist that he makes work. He makes work, and it's well done. It's hilarious. Really good book, Columbus Day, Craig Allinson. Number 9, going back to your tradition, science fiction, fantasy roots, Starship Troopers by Heinlein. If you read science fiction at all, you know Heinlein. And once again, my rule saved me here, because he also wrote Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Stranger in a Strange Land. Heinlein has one of the most famous, he's one of the fathers of science fiction. Starship Troopers is nothing to do with the movie. I think the names are the same, it's about as close as it gets. It's a political science, once again, pretty conservative. A lot of people probably won't like it because of that, but his ideas on how a society and humans should be, amazing. Number 10. And number 10 and 11 I'm going to throw out together. Number 10 I put Animal Farm, George Orwell. Number 11, well, I'll wait a second. We'll do Animal Farm, George Orwell. Yeah. It's just one of the most concise, best books, especially for a youth to read, to understand human nature.
You know, when my children or any of my friends say this world is so bad, it's getting worse all the time, I say you need to read Animal Farm. You know, to understand that humans, as far as human nature, hasn't changed in thousands of years. We keep repeating the same patterns. Animal Farm is one of those books that really teach that well. And then with Orwell, you have to give a shout out to 1984, another book that really teaches about the human condition. Number 11, that this is it's a fantasy book, a la South Park almost. It's The Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, Christopher Moore. It's about the 14th apostle Biff, you know, his boyhood friend, and tells about where Christ was going to find the 3 wise men that had visited him as a baby so that he can learn about his destiny. And they travel all over the Eastern Europe. And it's irreverent, it's vulgar, it's as if a gospel was written by Cartman from South Park. It's embarrassing to laugh at the stuff because it is so vulgar and crass, but it is clever enough. I was constantly laughing. I'd have to stop and compose myself once in a while listening to the book. You know, so the Lamb. That's my top 11. I have to hurry and throw out some honorable mentions. And like I say, I had to stop thinking about it because there's easily 40 books that I've read, and I know there's probably hundreds of books that I haven't read yet that could jump into my top 10, or definitely right in there in the bottom, you know, 8, 9, 10, 11 categories. And it gets really hard because they're excellent, phenomenal books. They don't quite stand out like The Lord of the Rings, like Terry Pratchett, like Ready Player One, but they're right there close to them. I'm just going to quickly go through them. I'm going to try and do them in alphabetical order. I would say Altered Carbon at A, Richard K. Morgan. It is a raunchy, sexually explicit book. The science, the story is awesome. It's kind of back to Ringo's Paladin series. It would probably be in my top 10 if it wasn't so raunchy. The raunchiness and the graphic nature of some of the parts of it actually made me pause and fast forward a little bit, which was too bad. I mean, I don't know if he was trying to shock his readers or what was going on with a couple of those parts, because to me they really detracted from the story, and the story in itself was phenomenal. Armor, John Stakely. An amazing science fiction book. Tells a story how future the armor, the mech systems might work with soldiers. Probably a little eclipsed now because there won't actually be a human body in soldiers. We're finding out there's going to be drones, but really good visions, really good, you know, kind of in the Starship Trooper veins. With the soldiers in their armor and the fights and the story that is put together is an amazing story. The Bobaverse, very new series, Dennis E. Taylor, with artificial intelligence and where we're headed. Very germane to some of the current discussions going on in our life and in the world. I mean, I guess it's been going on for decades. iRobot was written decades ago and started to ask these questions about AI and what we're going to do. The Terminator, Skynet, it's continuation there. But he brings out some ideas and some potentials and some things that, you know, you can logically see happening with AI that are amazing. You know, the Bobaverse, I believe the first one is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. I guess I'll put that title out. The next one, Dragonlance, Mark Wise, Tracy Hickman. I haven't read any of their other work that I like, but I did like Dragonlance. I read them again, and I don't like them as much as I did when I was a youth. They are still some good books, lots of plot holes, lots of logical inconsistencies in human nature and stuff. I didn't notice any of that when I was a youth and I read them. I just loved them. So they've dropped on my list, but they're still an entertaining fantasy series to read. You gotta have fantasy, or I'm sorry, Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury, uh, Hyperion, Dan Simmons.
Had to learn how to do some editing there. The alarm was going off.
I believe I got down to Mistborn in the honorable mentions. Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson, I believe, was the author that finished the Wheel of Time series. Excellent, excellent series. I really enjoyed it. The magic and the idea, how magic works in the world, really well thought out, really well done. It doesn't break the rules. A lot of fantasy books have the tendency of, you just want it so bad and it'll work, and no, he has definite magical rules that he follows, which I personally enjoyed. I wish that he would have wrote the whole Wheel of Time series, because Jordan started out, the first 5 books, phenomenal, and then I really feel like he was just phoning them in to pick up a paycheck. They got horrible, where I just hoped, I was glad when he died. But everybody says that Sanderson finished off the series really well, so I'll probably have to go back and give them a chance. But Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson, good series to read. Larry Niven, I picked Mote in God's Eye. Really takes a look on human society and what happens in the end game of population growth and human expansion, what can happen. It's in an alien world where it happens, but it's a reflection on just logical ends of what happens when a society runs out of resources. And then the story and the characters, excellent book. Ringworld, I have to do a shout out where it's Larry Niven to Ringworld, one of the best science fiction books ever written. Has really inspired other science fiction books. Extremely good book. It's got some character traits and some of the main characters that I didn't like. That's why I didn't make it into my top 10, but definitely a book worth reading, one of the most famous science fiction books ever written. Pierce Anthony. When I was younger, I loved the Pierce Anthony books, the Xanth novels. I thought that they were just really imaginative and really drew you into a really fun fantasy world. And I got looking as I was reading some of his books, and I kind of got thinking that some of the books were a little perverted with, some situations that just were kind of like, yeah, icky. But I look back now, and Altered Carbon and Family Guy and South Park, I probably have to go back and revisit them, because I'm working off of memory from decades ago. Imagine if I read them now, it would be like, standard primetime programming on TV would be more shocking than those books were back then. But I do have fond memories of Pierce Anthony and many of his books. So that's my top 11 list. Some of my honorable mentions. Hundreds out there that could definitely be at number 12. Any one of them, and most of them could jump up into the top 8 through 11 easily, depending on how I'm feeling, the mood I have during the day. So I hope some of those books give you some ideas. Hope you have a chance to read some of those books, check out some of those authors. I'm going to go back and revisit almost all of these again and again through my life, and maybe this list will change. We'll find out. Thanks so much.